Hello everyone, myself Vaibhav. In today's session, we are seeing the Dow Jones Industrial Average starting the day on the higher side. We have these almost 1 percentage point rise at the start of the session, and that is coming on back of the phenomenal rise which we had seen in the last session. But even after this rise for last 2 days, we can't really say that the situation, or you can say the trend, is now again bullish for the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and the earlier decline which we saw till the Wednesday is still weighing heavily on the technical outlook in near term. So I would say that the Dow has gotten closer to some of the crucial levels, and it will be better for us to continue to look out for the near-term resistance. And in this session, I will be making you familiar with some of the levels and also what is likely to be the near-term outlook for the Dow Jones Industrial Average. If we consider the data docket for the day, apart from the US, for most of the other major economies of the world, we didn't really have much of the data which was of much consequence. For the US, we had plenty of data releases starting from the retail sales, then the industrial production, and just a while back, we got the University of Michigan's consumer survey data. And if we consider the retail sales, the growth has flattened in the month of April. Now, we are seeing that the US retail sales growth has stalled in the month of April, and the major contributing factors are actually the decline being observed in clothing store, general merchandise, and also the decline observed in musical instrument books. So I will not really go into the all the minor pointers, but we can take a inference from these reading that we have some moderation after a strong retail sales growth for last couple of months, and the retail sales are quite higher if we compare the reading to the month of April 2020, and that's simply because in last year we had the restrictions in place because of the ongoing coronavirus pandemic at that point in time, and as a result of that we have this astounding rise in these year's number as restrictions have been lifted and widespread vaccination has contributed to the increase in confidence of the people. Industrial production data is also showing some moderation compared to the prior month's reading. And if we consider the University of Michigan's consumer data pointers, we have some some decline being observed in most of these pointers. The consumer expectations are lower at 77.6. The consumer sentiments are also showing decline, and now it stands at 82.8 compared to the 88.3 in the prior month. And at the same time, the inflation expectations have risen substantially to 4.6% compared to the last month's reading of 3.4%. And I think most of these data points are being weighed heavily by these rising inflation, and also with inflation on the higher side, the spending power of the money in the people's hand increases, and that negatively impacts the consumer mood, and that's what we are seeing in these consumer survey data. Now let's shift our attention to the technical outlook. First, we will consider the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and then we will shift our attention to the USD JPY. Let's start with the Dow Jones Industrial Average technical outlook. This is the daily time frame chart, and here we have the Dow Jones Industrial Average climbing back after this decline in the earlier part of the week. We had almost 5 percentage point decline, starting closer to 35,000 and extending all the way to the 33,500. And now from the lower side, we have the gains of more than 3 percentage point. But as I said, in my opening remarks, we can't really say if the underlying trend, which had turned bearish from a short-term perspective, has changed. And I think, other than that, in near term, the risk still remains that after consolidation, we might see a fresh start of decline in the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So my take is that we should allow a day or two for the Dow Jones Industrial Average price action to stabilize, and after that we are likely to have much more clarity for the next week. So if we consider the lower time frame charting, we have this resistance in place on the higher side around 34,500. And if we consider this low, it was also the formation of a lower low, and this low was even below the central pivot point. Though the turnaround has been fairly sharp, still moving forward, I think it will be difficult for the Dow Jones Industrial Average to cross and hold above this first resistance. Of course, anything can happen, and that's why instead of jumping straight away, I think it will be better if we allow some more time for the dough to consolidate. And after due consolidation, if we see that it is starting to decline again, I think that will be the best time to get involved for the move on the lower side, and we can expect the retest of this central pivot point in next week. If we consider the regression curve has also now started to decline, and as the price action is quite volatile, I think in near term we will have to rely more on these pivot point formation rather than the regression curve. And if we want to optimize the trading setup, we will have to rely on these SMA formation. These three SMAs, 100, 50, and 200 SMAs, are pointing to the fact that this price area of convergence of 50, the 100 and 200 SMA is likely to act as the near-term resistance. In yesterday's session, we saw that this sharp rise stalled just below the 200 SMA. In today's session, though we had this move on the higher side, but after that, we are seeing again the Dow struggling and holding just in line with this resistance area, and also we have this prior consolidation phase low around this area. So I think for a session or two we can expect the Dow to consolidate in this narrow price band, with the higher side being capped around this 200 SMA. And if we see that the Dow is able to cross and hold above this 200 SMA, then only we will need to change our outlook, and in due course of time get ready to buy. But as long as we have this SMA formation, which is pointing on the lower side, which is pointing that the bearishness is still pretty much there, and it's just a matter of time before we see the resumption of the move on the lower side for the Dow. Now moving on to the USD JPY. This is the daily time frame chart, and here we have the USD JPY struggling after getting closer to this prior swing high, and in yesterday's session it stalled around 109.75, and in today's session, as the euro gathered momentum and as the JPY gathered momentum, we saw the USD on the back foot. And for USD JPY in particular, we didn't really see that much selling pressure. Of course, it has been on the decline for most part of the day, but as the US session has started, it has found some support on the lower side, closer to 109.20, and I am expecting it to continue to hold above 109, and we will see why 109 level is going to be important moving forward. So if we consider the lower time frame charting, we have this regression curve which is steeply inclined on the higher side. And also if we consider the pivot point formation, it is still conducive for a buy trade rather than sell trade. And I feel if we have the USD JPY holding well above the central pivot point. Then by the time we come back for trading on Monday, we can have much more clarity on the price action front. And also, if the USD JPY then shows any fresh upward momentum in Monday's session, I think we can go for the buy trade while keeping the stop loss just below the 109 level. So it will be interesting for USD JPY if in today's session we have the close above this central pivot point, and if in the earlier part of Monday's session we see that the USD JPY is able to hold above this support area, then as I said, we will be in position to go for the buy trade, and the price move on the higher side can be expected towards 110. So if you want to optimize the entry point, I think on the lower side, this 100 and 200 SMA convergence is likely to hold the key. So as long as the USD JPY is consolidating with support on the lower side, and it is not really breaking on the lower side below this support zone, till then we can continue to wait on the bullish momentum. We had this sharp move on the higher side, and that is likely to provide some confidence to the prospective buyers. And unless and until we have the breakout on the lower side below 109, we are going to have this outlook which is going to be more helpful, more conducive for the buy trade. And on the higher side, this level, this prior swing high level of around 109.8 can be expected to be retested, and in due course of time, the move beyond that towards 110 can be expected. So if we want to go for the buy trade, I think this price zone of around 109.10 to 109.20 is going to be a ideal choice, provided we have the sharp stop loss. So we will need to allow USD JPY further correction on the lower side, and then it should consolidate first at least for a couple of hours, and as and when it starts to show the momentum building up for the long trade, I think that will be the time we can jump in and look to initiate the trade with target, as I said, coming closer to this immediate high. And if you are willing to wait, you can even keep the target beyond this higher swing high. So that's my take on the USD JPY, looking at its current price trajectory, where the stop loss is going to be not much wide. 20-25 pips stop loss should be good enough for any trading opportunity in the USD JPY. And for that kind of risk, we can expect to make more than 50 pips on the higher side. And if you are in position to wait for a couple of days, the price zone of even 110 is likely to be reached. So in that case, you will be getting the risk reward ratio, which is likely to be a lot better than even 1 is to 2. And with that, the session is also coming to an end. And if you have any query or any idea to share, you can write to me in the feedback section, and I will be more than happy to take the discussion forward. Before I sign off, I would also like to remind of the risk associated with trading in the financial instrument, and one should be careful while utilizing the information provided. Have a fabulous day ahead and the weekend. See you on Monday. Till then, goodbye.